Peace and welcome to POP. That's Picking Up Punches. It's your boy Sergio Chacon, and I'm with my man Derek Dresser. What's happening?
How you doing, Pop?
I'm doing well.
How you living? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. I completed the marathon in way much better time than my previous.
Now,
so I'm feeling myself. Go ahead.
I know you're feeling yourself. Now, the goal was to break 4.
So
we did not
you're
get there.
You're already, shitting on my parade. I did 4:18. That's considerably better from the first one. That's considerably better.
How much? What was your first one?
It was, I forget, but I definitely.
It was like you beat it by like 20 minutes, right?
By 20
minutes. I
minutes.
will say this: you started training late. You completed your training. You were on the road. You did a 20. Didn't you do a 20-mile run in?
Yeah,
Florida or some shit.
Yeah. So listen, man. The training
Dirtbag
for
shit.
it was grueling because I was out in Fort Lauderdale with Chrissy, doing stand-up out there 11 p.m. on a Saturday night or Friday night, cleaning up messes on stage. People were unruly in Florida.
Right.
I get up on stage. I ended up hosting. I was supposed to be featuring, and whatever. The feature act stunk up the place. They shat on stage. So I go up to clean up this mess. There's people smoking in the freaking crowd. One guy's foot is on the stage.
Oh, that would have
me nuts. I said, no, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah.
Get your foot off the stage. One guy's trying to talk. I said, I don't want to talk to you. No one came to listen to your shit.
Right.
You put up, I don't know why you're rolling a blunt. You can't smoke it in here. It's not Colorado. You know what I'm saying? So I had to shut all that shit down. I was a little irate because I knew I had to run 20 plus miles the following day in unknown ground in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
I was given a plan. I woke up at 5 a.m. I ran. My knee started to fuck me up.
Right.
And I did the last 5 miles on a treadmill. What I'm saying is,
I like how you snuck that in at the end.
The training was grueling.
Right.
But I recovered well. A lot of that stuff I feel like applied and turned right over to the actual race because the day of the race, I was beat up leading up to the day of the race. I mean, it was like power up.
Yeah.
I just felt like a different man. I felt strong.
That happens a lot. On race day, you're like, you feel it. It's a whole nother level. 'Cause the hay is in the barn. You know what I mean? You did the work. And I saw those pictures, man. I unfortunately, I could not get out there on race day to cheer you on. But
it's all good.
I was with
you
in
in spirit. I didn't need you. I didn't need my name on my shirt.
Oh.
I ran to the rhythm of my own breath for the first 10 miles. That bridge that killed my ass, the Queens Bridge. What's that bridge?
59th Street.
The 59th Street Bridge was my nemesis. So when I saw that bridge, I was like, this is the fucker that tightened up my hips.
Well, the thing about that bridge.
Let me just say, and I ran up that shit, and I checked my hips, and I was one of those annoying runners. I was like, come on, guys, we can do this. And people were grunting. People were like, oh, fuck.
Well, that's the thing about that bridge. You get to that bridge, right? You're surrounded by people for the whole race. Then you get to that bridge, and there's no people, and all you hear is,
yeah.
And that's when it gets into the dome piece.
Man.
And you got to see where you're at in your dome piece. You heard?
That's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly what happens. So, you get caught up in the hype. People, the Mexicans and Italians out in Brooklyn cheering you on. And then you got all the different neighborhoods you hit up.
Yep.
They're
cheering you.
Yeah, they're cheering, man.
Pushing you.
It's powerful.
You hit that bridge and you got nothing. It's just
then you're alone.
Yeah.
And, once I got off that shit, I had a nice rhythm and I ended mad strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience. I think it was.
I wanted
the best
you to
possible
break
outcome.
4. I mean, that's me as as your coach for the marathon. Even though you did start late, I felt in my heart that you could break 4. It was a great finish. I feel that if you trained the full time next time, that you could break 4.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I think I'm done with New York.
What say you? What say you, sir?
I might do Boston.
What?
I might do Boston flip-flops. Really challenge myself.
Boston is a tough course.
Oh, cut it out.
Bro, and first of all, you gotta qualify for Boston. How old are you?
42.
42, yeah. You're gonna have to run it in less than 3:50. You're gonna have to run a Boston qualifying marathon in less than 3 hours, maybe actually 3 hours and 5 minutes to qualify for Boston.
Why is that? Because I'm a New Yorker?
No, to qualify for Boston, you have to hit that time.
So everybody that runs the Boston Marathon,
they either qualify
flies
for that time or they raise $7,500.
Mm.
And $7,500 is a lot of money to raise. And while you're trying to train for a marathon. Could you imagine the stress of that?
Where does the money go? I'm curious. Where does the money go? Maybe we should have one of those marathon organizers come on here and sit down and let's go through the paperwork. Because where does that money go?
Boston Athletic Association, the most racist city in America.
Does it go to BLM?
I think it goes to. You can run for charities.
I'm tired of these charities because it's like, fight for cancer. What about if I'm pro-cancer? What about if I'm pro-disease, death, and despair?
What? Well, what are your reasons behind this logic? You got me locked in because if it has to do with violence or death, I'm in. So,
I'm just saying. I just don't know where the money goes.
The money goes to whatever charity you choose to run for.
Yeah, I don't buy it. Hard sniff at the end. I don't buy it.
I'm with you. I think
it's a big racket.
You're not going to get any argument over here, Pop. You're not going to get.
I'm not going to get any resistance.
I know how dark human beings are, especially when it comes to money.
I'm just saying, man. If you're pro death and despair, then you put money into things that matter, like caskets and urns, and shit that's useful to people. Anyway, we have a fantastic show lined up today. This guy is a controversial figure. He was friends with a dirtbag. Marion.
I got to get over pro death and despair. Just give me 1 second.
Any man named Marion is a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Think of Suge Knight.
First name, last name.
Yeah. Marion Barry. Marion. So he was good friends with him, and he was also the manager of Riddick Bowe, and he's an interesting guy.
Can we just remind everybody of who Marion Barry is? They caught him smoking crack with a hooker while he was, I believe, the incumbent mayor of D.C. I believe that is the proper word, if I'm not mistaken. Woo, I'm on fire. They called him smoking crack, and he got off with it, and he came out, and he said, free at last, thank God Almighty, I am free at last. Martin Luther King was spinning in his grave, ladies and gentlemen. And Rock Newman helped this man. He went on a PR tour all across D.C. in his Cadillac to get people back on the side of Marion Barry, and he did it. He did it.
And that, my friends, is who we have on the show. Please welcome Mr. Rock Newman. Rock Newman, the myth, the legend, the man. So happy to have you on POP, a.k.a. Picking Off Punches. Rock, just so you know, this podcast is designed to highlight magnetic boxing figures, but you are more than a boxing figure. I know you're a community organizer. You're also a broadcaster yourself, or you were in the past. We want to learn all about that. But one thing I learned about you early on, you were part of a big family. Correct? You were the youngest of 7. Is that correct?
The youngest of 8. I had 5 brothers and 2 sisters. Yeah.
Wow. Where'd you grow up?
In a little rural community. I was born in Washington, D.C., but grew up in a little rural community, Brandywine, Maryland, about 30 miles south of Washington, D.C., but it was like being a million miles away, man. We had farm animals, and we grew our own vegetables. So it was very rural, farm-like community where I grew up.
So I imagine it was correct, and you used an outhouse to like the age of 16 type thing. It was rural like that.
That would be correct. We were, I guess, we certainly would be defined as being impoverished. It just never seemed that way because we always had plenty of food, and my mom used to loan people money all the time. So I didn't know that I was in poverty. I did know that I wanted to move away from the community that I was in, outside of that, see the world. All of my brothers were like, as my dad was were truck drivers, cement truck drivers. And I just knew I wanted more than that.
At what age did you have that self-discovery?
Oh, man. I mean, as early as like the 4th grade, and I think it really was my obsession with sports and seeing some of the lifestyle of some of the athletes that I so love. And I read the newspapers religiously. There was a period of time I could tell you who the top 10, who had the top 10 batting averages and the NFL players. I was obsessive in my interest in sports.
And you were a pretty damn good baseball player.
Man, you know,
Line drive hitting. I know. I've done my research on The Rock. Line drive hitting. Meanwhile, I was the reason why my Pee Wee League championship lost because I missed the foul ball. I missed the ball that came to right field first time in the season.
You know what, man?
Out of 12 games, and I dropped it, Rock. I don't think about that much anymore.
It's funny how we remember those things because every time that I revisit my old home area, there was a school not far from my high school and junior high school, which was Gwynn Park High School, which, by the way, the field is now named after me. I had to throw that plug in. That shameless plug I had to throw in.
I like it. That was
but it's a school, Surrattsville, man. And I remember being in the 7th grade. I was the starting catcher on the junior high school team, which was grade 7, 8, and 9. A guy tried to stretch a triple into a home run. And I had the ball waiting on him at the plate. And he came in and slid, and I tagged him. And a goddamn devil just made the ball drop out of my glove. And the dudes, that was the winning run, man. Every time I go by there, I remember that trauma, man. I remember that trauma. It told me to hold on tight to things that I love.
That's a great lesson to life.
Yeah, that's a good lesson right there. When did you, what made you decide to get into boxing?
Well, I'll tell you something. When I became the obsessive Cassius Clay fan in like 1962, I wasn't aware of him when he was in the Olympics. I was only 8 years old then.
Okay.
But in about 62, I started reading about this guy that says that, you know, Archie Moore must fall in 4, and Doug Jones, the big fat hen, he might go 10. And I started, you know what, and I became just obsessive. And Muhammad Ali, his life and career had the biggest impact on my life than any other human being. And I'm talking mom, dad, friends, teachers, whatever. The greatest impact on my life came from Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali. The night that he won the title, February 25th, 1964, against Sonny Liston, my birthday was the day before. And so I knew that Ali was going to, that Cassius Clay still at the time was going to give me the gift of a victory for my birthday that night. And everyone else that I talked to, my mom, my dad, my priest, my high school, my elementary school principal, my teacher, all of my classmates laughed at me to even think that this scared big mouth punk from Louisville, Kentucky could beat, you know, Sonny Liston, the baddest man on the planet at the time. And I just kept, man, saying, yes, he can, yes, he can. And on that night when Liston sat on the stool and Clay became the champion, I had a total psychological, mental transformation that said, if I believed it, I didn't care what anybody else said. I could achieve what I wanted to achieve. And so I had a two-pronged plan. I wanted to become a professional baseball player. But if I didn't, looking at the boxing game through 12-year-old eyes, I said, well, if something happens and I can't become a professional baseball player, I want to be what Angelo Dundee is. Now, to me at the time, Angelo Dundee was his manager, he was everything. And of course, he was his trainer. He wasn't his manager. But I don't know, man. I just had something. I just loved that scene, you know? So I said right at about 12 years old, if for some reason I can't play professional baseball, that's what I want to do. And, you know, watch what you dream about and ask for, because it might just happen.
How'd you meet Riddick Bowe?
Riddick Bowe, in the lead up to the Olympics, was going around and meeting promoters and managers in the fight game, to talk to them about, to see, who he might want to represent him. And really, Riddick had a little hustle with him, where in meeting with everybody, he also had a unique way of hustling and getting a few dollars from you, whether it was 100 or 50 or whatever it might be. And he'd tell a sad story. It was true, but he'd tell a sad story about, him living with his mom and 7 or 8 other people in a little 2-bedroom, apartment. His sister had recently been murdered, and, he had a brother dying of AIDS. And, so I was working with Butch Lewis and Michael Spinks at the time, but I had every intent to leave the business once Spinks lost to Tyson. I had decided I wanted to get out of the business. It wasn't the business of boxing I didn't like so much. The competition I thought was fantastic. But I didn't like the business so much. So I was getting ready to get out, and I said, the only thing that would keep me in would be an opportunity to work with someone, to be able to control the situation with someone who I thought had a chance to become the heavyweight champion. But I didn't think that was going to materialize. So I really met with Riddick more than Butch did. Butch Lewis at the time, it's funny. He told Bowe, he said, man, we can do something here. I'll give you a few dollars, which actually Bowe wasn't supposed to be taking, but that's 100 years ago. So he said, but man, when they put the microphone on you, make sure you say, thanks to Butch Lewis and all that Butch Lewis is doing for me and all that kind of thing. Butch was not short on ego at all. And, and whenever Riddick got on camera, he never mentioned that. So, Butch called me a couple of times. It's like, man, that motherfucker, that motherfucker ain't said nothing about us yet. So when he lost, first of all, in 1988, when he fought Lennox Lewis, I thought Bowe won the first round of the fight. Mm-hmm. In the second round, Lennox hit him with a good shot. He didn't go down or anything. He didn't buckle or any of that. And the Polish referee came in, and I really thought stopped the fight immaturely. So I told Butch, I said, look, if you don't want to do anything with him, if you did, my loyalty is such that we have worked together. I would never try to step in and cut you out. I'm encouraging you to sign. But if you're not going to, I will give consideration to doing it. He's like, man, he's going to break your heart. Go for it. But he's going to break your heart. And then I started talking to Riddick about representing him, and agreed to give him $50,000 and, get him out of that apartment in Brooklyn, get him a car and do some things and to start the journey. And, man, on the press release when we signed on December the 19th, 1988, I said, I expect him to be the heavyweight champion within 4 years. I picked the date. It was September the 21st. It was a Saturday night, and it had happened to be the date of my first serious girlfriend.
Make sure that door is closed and your wife doesn't hear that.
Yeah, it's locked. It's locked. That was the date. I said, in less than 4 years, you'll be the heavyweight champion if you follow the plan we put together.
It seems, given your history with relationship with your fighters and the people that you cared about, you were like loyal and you went all out for them. Where'd you learn that from? That's one thing that seems to be pronounced.
You know something, guys? I think that some kind of way I was blessed with a gene, with a loyalty gene, I think. And I'm going to say this, with a loyalty gene, which I had to learn later on, that came with a sensibility that said that I will go to war I'll go to war for a friend of mine. I'll go to war for somebody that I represent, that I care about. And I will go, man, I'll go down fighting. But there does come a time when if someone is on a personal train track to a wreck, that it becomes, the friend's responsibility or the person that's on that track to pull up and get off that track rather than try to kill all of us. And I've had that kind of a relationship, with, that's high profile, for example, with Marion Barry, who, many people credited me with being the architect of his recovery from being the most politically dead politician in the country ever, because he got caught on tape smoking crack cocaine and saying, the bitch set me up. And, he was sent to prison. And Marion I had become friends with Marion. And this was right around the same time I was launching Bowe's career. So, man, I was getting advice from all quarters, man, don't hang with that guy. You're going to mess up, your image, and you're trying to launch Bowe and all of that. That stuff didn't matter to me. He was my friend, and I was going to do all I could to help him. Well, he did his prison time. He came back. We put together really what I think a political marketing campaign that was phenomenal, that got him back to become a city council person. And then he ran for mayor against all odds and got into the mayor's office again. Wow. And then he started to, his frailties came forward again. So much so that at one point, when I knew that he was doing the things that he had promised not to do, such as, destroy himself with drugs again, I had a real heart-to-heart, a come to Jesus, if you will, and said, man, you promised the people you weren't going to do this. And I put my reputation on the line saying the same thing. And if you continue to do this and to break the commitment that you made, and you're on this train that's getting ready to run into disaster, don't ask me to stay on the train with you. You get off the train. And, those frailties were more powerful than his will to overcome them at the time. And he kept doing what he was doing. And I called on him to resign. And, we parted ways for several years, afterwards, we had heart to heart, way after. And he said, man, I understand. I was pissed off with you at the time, but I understand why you did what you did, And, but I mean, so I had gone through that, with him. And that's my nature, man, to be in the foxhole and fight to the end, as long as, we're trying to fight together. So I've long held that,
You put yourself in harm's way a few times for Riddick. The Elijah Tillery fight. I was as a kid. That was the first time I'd actually seen your face on a TV screen. when he I think he went to kick Riddick Bowe after the bell, I believe, and you pulled him over the top rope, right?
Man, I'll tell you. I became a jailhouse hero that night. All the guys in prison throughout the country and outside of the country, there was something about that appealed to them, where they were like, man, that's the kind of guy I want to have by my side.
Exactly.
Now, the truth of the matter is, it wasn't as heroic or gangster as it looked. My family was in the arena that night. Seth Abraham and all the honchos at HBO had come down, and I was in charge of all of the promotion, man. I worked my ass off, so much so, if you notice, I had like a Diodora sweatsuit on.
Yep,
I didn't even have time to go to the hotel room and change. So, and probably good because I'd have got my nice suit all messed up. but so when Tillery started kicking Bowe in his private parts, man, my instinct, that old loyal instincts, I guess you're talking about, they just kicked in. And what I tried to do, honestly, I tried to get up and get between them and, break it up. But one of Tillery's guys grabbed my legs. I was standing up on the ring corner. He grabbed my legs and yanked me. When he yanked me, I clotheslined Tillery and he flipped backwards out. Man,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it looks gangster and spectacular.
It does.
But we got about $10 million worth of publicity out of that. I got fined $500. I said, well, I can handle that. And, but yeah, man, you guys would be shocked the number of letters that found their way to my office, man, after that. And it just was a interesting, dynamic, crazy experience. And, some kind of way, crazy experiences found their way into our camp on multiple occasions.
Right. Yeah, the fight with Galata, we actually just did an episode on that.
Yeah.
Galata, he continued to hit Riddick Bowe low for both fights. That
was at the Garden, 1996.
Yeah, the original ride was at the Garden. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one was at the Garden. Yeah, the second one was down in Atlantic City. And man, when they say styles make fights, there was a couple of things. At that point, Bowe felt as if he was so comfortable materially. Money, bunch of houses, bunch of cars, a bunch of money in the bank. He became harder and harder to convince, to take it seriously, and to get in position. Eddie and Thel both felt like, Galata, he could take Galata even if he wasn't at his best.
So he was out of shape. He wasn't training the way he was supposed to.
Huh?
He was out of shape. He wasn't training like he was supposed to.
No, absolutely not.
So what would a day at the gym look like for Riddick Bowe during that time?
Huh?
What would a day at the gym look like for Riddick Bowe at that time?
Maybe before he got his hands taped, he ate a big box of sugar frosted flakes.
Yeah.
I mean, Riddick.
Resting on a medicine ball as a pillow.
The thing is, for somebody that came from where Riddick came from, like
is he from the Ville?
He's from Brownsville.
Yeah,
so
Brownsville. 250 Lot Avenue.
Oh,
and
wow.
I wasn't too far from there. I lived in East New York, Brooklyn. But I remember for a lot of my life, I did not have much money. And when I finally got settled, there was a hunger in me that went away once I knew that I didn't have to worry about finances.
Before I signed Bowe, I said something to him, and he looked at me like I had 4 heads and asked the question, well, what do that mean? I said to him, man, the sum total of my experiences, now that I've gotten to know you the way that I know you, I am uniquely qualified to represent you. So he said, so what does that mean? I said, well, I'm going to be very candid with you. First of all, I'm a passionate person. I want to win. I've paid my dues in this boxing world, and gotten to be an expert in what's supposed to happen in the ring and what's supposed to happen outside the ring. I know how to handle these no good bastards in the Alphabet Soup organization. I know how to handle, and I'm not afraid of Duva, Aram, King, or any of them. And I will fight for you, man. I said, now that's on one level. On the other level, I was a counselor for 5 years. And by and large, although I'm not accredited with a counseling degree, I have a lot of counseling experience. So he said, in other words, you think Big Daddy's crazy. So I said, I'm not saying you're crazy, but you need a lot of tender love and care. And also, I had a talk show on a radio station that wasn't paying me any money. I had to go out and sell advertising, and I had to do promotion, and I had to do marketing. I had to do all of those things. And all of those things together uniquely qualify me to represent you. And I'm serious about the counseling part, because you do a lot of you have some instincts that are very self-destructive, and I want to try to help you get past those. And guys, for many years, as he was rising, I was in his ear, man, and Bowe would give a speech and he would kind of repeat what I had said to him, which was, do the right thing because the right thing is always the right thing to do. Doing the right thing is always the right time to do the right thing. And that was being put in his ear after he grew up on a motto that said, only a fool and a mule works hard. Now, where did that come from? That came from the days of slavery. His mother lived in Georgia with sharecroppers. The sharecroppers, his great-grandparents, those were his grandparents. His great-grandparents were slaves. And there was that theory, that was that saying that came out of slavery and sharecropping. Nobody works hard but a fool and a mule, because you don't get anything for the work that you put in. And he heard that, man, all of his life. When he got to be about 12 years old and saw what Muhammad Ali was doing, he had a dream of being rich and famous. But he did not connect being rich and famous with the work ethic that it took to get there. And so he did not have self-motivation. I'm telling you stuff, man, that's going to be in my book when I write it. But, I took him to a sports psychologist one time. And the sports psychologist told me, he said, look, I'm willing to work with him, but I want to be very candid with you. If I work with him, you guys may not last. So I said, okay, well, why do you say that? He said, because now he depends on you and not himself. If I can work with him and bring him along, I want to teach him self-accountability, because right now he's doing all of this because you are inspiring him to do. You're demanding that he do this. But I will have him more self-accountable. And I said, Doc, go for it. I want him to be self-accountable. And if I'm a casualty in that process, I'm willing to take that risk. And so, I told Bowe, hey, man, we got another appointment. He was like, man, you told me that guy, was a sport, so it would help me improve my sports. He a goddamn shrink, and Big Daddy ain't crazy. He don't need him. And he just absolutely refused to go back to seeing. So it was left up to me to a large extent. Managers and promoters don't typically spend their time in training camp. We're out making deals and doing what we do, generating revenue. Riddick had the greatest trainer on the planet, Eddie Futch.
Yep. But
if I wasn't in training camp, things would absolutely fall apart. He just, he relied on my passion, on my spirit And if I wasn't there, it would be more likely he wouldn't get up in the morning. I mean, it happened on a number of occasions. And so, hey, I spent every camp I was in camp, doing what I had to do, motivating him. And I always said, the night he won the title, guys, they wanted us to come around the back of the Mirage Hotel and go into the tunnel and come in and walk in through the back into the victory party. I said, oh, hell no. We're pulling right up front where the crowds are gathered, and that's all right. We're gonna make our way through this crowd. But before I let him get out of the car, I said, man, let's talk for a second. There ain't nobody going anywhere. They're gonna be right there. Let's talk for a second. I said, there's only one person on this planet that can beat you now. This performance you put on tonight, you're the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And there ain't but one human being on the planet that can beat you. And he's like, oh, who the hell is that? And I'm like, Riddick Bowe. You're the only person that can beat you, And we can beat the rest of them. You're the only person that can beat you. And I said, who do you consider your biggest enemy in boxing right now? He said that, he called him a few names, Lennox Lewis. So I said, well, what Lennox would want would be for you to have won this title, made this money, and to go home and gain 50, 60, 70 pounds, get yourself out of shape and have to struggle for the next fight. And of course, that night he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And that was November the 13th, 1992. When he went in training camp, the 1st of December, the 1st of January, 2nd of January, he had gained 50 pounds. And we had a fight February the 6th against Michael Dokes. Now, Michael Dokes wasn't the toughest competition, and that was by intention. People criticize me for getting him a couple of easy fights. Like, okay, keep criticizing, and we'll keep taking this $8 million payday. But yeah, man, it was a struggle. It was, my biggest struggle. The industry hated me, and and I didn't love them. I wore their hatred as a badge of honor.
Do you know what?
It wasn't, but they weren't out. They weren't the toughest opponent. Riddick was his own toughest opponent.
Do you still keep in contact with Riddick? Do you know what he's up to these days?
I do not. Riddick broke my, as like Butch Lewis said. He said, "Ain't gonna break your heart." Well, we did wonderful things. We climbed the highest of high mountains in the sport together, to achieve what we both dreamed of. But afterwards, after the Galata fight and him going into the military and then him making some decisions to, go down and kidnap his wife, his estranged wife, and so many of the things I stood by, man. I went to court. I helped him get off. But after that, he just started doing monumentally self-destructive things. And he came to me one day and he said, Big Daddy got to take over his own business. And at the time, guys, when he did that, I gave him boxes and boxes and boxes of paperwork and accounts and contact numbers and names and all of those things, man. And I said, Riddick, you got too much wealth to jeopardize your health. I'm not going to support you fighting again. He said he wanted to, and he had to take over his own business. And, at the time, and I want to make this point, at the time, he bragged, not me, he bragged about having $20 million liquid, if you will, $20 million in cash, 6 homes, 26 cars, all the kids' college education paid for, and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's what he bragged about after he decided that he wanted to handle his own money, and I had nothing to do with any of his business, money, or anything else beyond that time. Now, in his most delusional, crazy way, later on, years later, when he got broke, where people swindled him, he got a divorce. Years later, when he became broke, he then said, I stole money from him, which, is beyond insane and extremely easy to prove how crazy and false that was. But so that's why I want to make that point. When I had nothing else to do with him, financially, friendship-wise, or anything, he had a net worth that was probably approaching $30 million.
Wow. I can just tell, given your passion and your loyalty, that's hurtful. And it seems like present day, I mean, it still affects you. Is that correct in saying?
Let me tell you something, man. When I was walking in court with him, and I was the central witness on his behalf, and this was, and I can't say this, I think, without it sounding self-aggrandizing, but on the witness stand, after I had, over the course of a couple of days, said my piece, the judge said to me, Mr. Newman, you seem to know these two people better than anyone. If you were in my position, what would you do? I said, I wouldn't put Riddick Bowe in jail. I said, we had put together a defense where he had where our medical experts said that he had frontal lobe damage from boxing, which was something that could be repaired as long as he didn't take other repeated blows. So I said, let him recover, let the part that controls his instincts repair, and he's not a danger to society. So don't put him behind bars when he can go out and do some good work. And this is obviously public record. It's in the court record and documented. So it's not me here, blowing smoke up anybody's butt. The judge in his sentencing, I said, I would make sure that he wasn't boxing, because if he boxes, then that could be damage. So the judge told him 4 years, you can't box. We're not going to put you in jail. And, basically he was, left to go free. And in all of his wisdom or lack thereof later on, and while we were going in court that day is what I wanted to say. While we were walking into the court that day, I had to use all the strength and composure that was within my being not to burst out crying on the street, because I had a dream for it to be another way. That also went in my first press release. I said he was going to win the title within 4 years, and we wanted to use the platform to show other athletes, other boxers, how a client and representative relationship should be. I wanted us to be the poster boys for how that should be. And here I was walking in court, afraid that a judge was going to put him in jail for some of the dumbass things that he did. Keep in mind, he showed up at the house where Judy was living, his wife was living, with duct tape, a Bowie knife, a body bag, and pepper spray. That's the kind of dumb shit he was doing. And we saved him from that, man. Yet and still, after that was over with, he went out and did a lot of other dumb stuff and self-sabotage and destroyed himself, man. And years later, blamed me. Go figure. So, no, I do not talk to him. I don't care to talk to him. I don't want to talk to him. He's not my kind of, he became the heavyweight champion of the world, but he turned out to be very much not my kind of guy. And that broke my heart. That broke my heart.
Would you say having an experience like that with someone you were promoting and a friend, a longtime friend, really turned you off from boxing? Is this something that you're absolutely like done with, or do you still keep an eye on it and you know the state of it? And if so, what do you think the state of it is right now?
Good question, guys. Good question. That didn't do it. It made me reticent about investing so much of my life into someone else that no matter how close you thought you are, it was Seth Abraham and Ross Greenberg, Mark Taffet, it might have been Kerry Davis at HBO. They said to me one day later, they said, you saved him from all the scoundrels in boxing. But the one thing you couldn't do was save him from himself.
Right.
And that's a universal truth, man. You can't save somebody from themselves if they are on a path of self-destruction.
That's right. Yeah,
you might slow it down, interfere with it, arrest it from time to time. But at the end of the day, if that's where their mentality is, that's what happens. But that alone didn't do it. I loved the sport of boxing. I despised most of the people in boxing and the exploitation that they practiced. And I never became a part of it. Mike Wallace in 60 Minutes did a piece on me. And Mike Wallace asked me a question. I didn't know it was coming. He said, so you're going to clean up boxing? And man, I had to take a long pregnant pause. And I said, I can't say that I can clean up boxing, but I'm never going to let boxing dirty me. And so through the years, I'd look at the big fights coming up, Pacquiao and Mayweather and, some of the big fights. But one day I was watching, I don't know whether it was ESPN or what it was. And I saw these two fighters. They were 6-round fighters. And they both were big punchers, and neither of them had any skill, really, not any defense.
So it was like rock'em sock'em robots.
That's a very good term. They were throwing and landing bombs on each other. And in my calculation, they probably were getting $1,000 a piece. I mean, they were undercard. And I mean, at the end of the fight, both of their faces looked like it had been through meat grinders, man. And at that moment, I said, I don't like boxing anymore. I don't like it as a sport and as a competition anymore. And I'm never going to buy another pay-per-view fight. I'm never going to pay for another ticket. I'm not going to, my protest is I'm not going to participate in that. Hey guys, are you able to hold just a second? I got to run to the door.
We're gonna end.
Yeah,
shortly,
we got
right?
one last question, but if you got to run to the door, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just want to know, in closing, what are you doing these days? And
I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm loving my puppies down here in Boca Raton, Florida. Loving the weather. I'm consulting several different kinds of projects and loving life. Hey guys, it was great to be with you. I gotta run.
Thank you so much, Rock. Take care.
Thank
All right,
you.
man. Thank you.
Rock Newman, everybody. What a fantastic guest.
Wonderful guest, man. Well,
I got to be honest with the people. I didn't want him on originally.
And Sergio was fighting me too.
Derek, you fought. Yeah, you fought for him. Is this?
I fought for him because every man deserves their say, to defend themselves.
I just didn't really know too much about him.
The thing is this: if you talk about me now, you go, Derek's a good guy. He's my friend. You know what I mean? Derek will stick his neck out for me, right?
But on
if you
paper, it's a checkered past.
If you ask somebody that doesn't know me now but knew me back in the day, they will go, "You're out of your mind. He's a dirtbag.
He's a crook.
He's a crook." Right. And we don't even, it wasn't even if Rock was a crook or not. It was just he was portrayed not in the best light in the media.
So what's interesting is that I just didn't know. I didn't know bad or good about him. I just didn't know much about him.
Well, you know what made me like him?
Yeah.
Pulling Elijah Tillery over the ropes. I was like, I fuck with this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm getting, just what he's giving me today, and holy shit, I mean, he seems like a genuine dude. Like, I believe him.
He seems like a real dude.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Real.
And I feel like his story kind of falls into that category where, like, you can't always fucking trust the media.
No. You can't. Hell, absolutely not.
It's just like we get caught up. Sometimes we get bits of information. It's easy, right? It's like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm running with. I want to have an opinion on this shit. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, you got to do your research. You got to talk to the people. And you got to, like, feel it in your gut. So I fucks with Rock. I like him.
Yeah.
We still don't know if he's black, white, or Chinese.
Right. We have no idea.
Jesus Christ.
We have no idea. Could be. I have no idea.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if he pulled off he's just a black man underneath? I'm like, Rock, where's your collection of dashikis at?
I definitely, he did wear a dashiki the one time I remember. He was talking shit in it too. He was talking wild shit. He was like, yeah, my fighter's going to bust your fighter's ass. I know dashiki. He got a nice beard, Rock.
Yeah, it's a majestic beard.
Yeah, majestic beard.
It's a beard that deserves 3 women at one time. He looks like he smells like incense.
Rock, yeah. He's a classy dude.
I
man.
like him.
He was poor.
He put me in a great mood.
He was poor. Muhammad Ali got him into boxing, like joined the club on that, right, man? I mean, the first time I heard Ali speak, I didn't even see him throw a punch. I just heard him talk, and I was like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? Ali
didn't grab me. He didn't grab me.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was black and white. I didn't care for it.
Really?
I wanted color for my fights. So
I just remember him saying to Sonny,
older than me.
He had a collar in his hands, and he was yelling at Sonny Liston's tour bus. He goes, I'm going to collar that big black bear. I was like, holy shit. And he's shaking a collar at him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And now I can appreciate it. But when I was a kid, I didn't want anything black and white. The only thing I wanted black and white was I Love Lucy. Rest in peace, Lucille Ball.
And Desi Arnaz.
He was a wife beater.
Was he?
According to the media.
I mean, at that time, though.
Yo.
And he's not from here, man. It's a culture clash. He was Cuban, right? Does he?
But what a fantastic guest. I would love to have him on
again.
man,
piece of boxing history. He really brought 2 eras together. He was working with Butch a little bit there. He said from the Ali Spinks into Holyfield, Riddick Bowe era. You know what I mean? It's and we learned a lot. Great conveation.
Yeah, you could say he's a smart person.
Very smart guy. Very smart. And I like stories. Like the guy had nothing growing up. He was poor, dirt poor. And look what he did. And he did stuff for his community in D.C., and just a lot of respect for him. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved every moment.
So shout out to Rock Newman. Thanks for coming out. That was a fantastic show. Until the next one, it's POP, Picking Off Punches. Derek Jusha. I'm Sergio Chacon. We out here.